Hello, my fellow YouTubers and subscribers, and welcome, willkommen to my latest review of His Dark Materials Season 1. Today, we review Episode 6, The Demon Cages. Apologies for the break after the previous review. I finished up my reviews of Christopher Eccleston's era of Doctor Who. So I decided, well, now is the time to finish my reviews of the first season of His Dark Materials. So let's get on with episode 6. Okay, so the basic plot is as follows. Lyra discovers the horrific truth behind the Gobbler's activities in the north. She must use all her wits to help free those around her and avoid suffering a terrible fate. And that's the plot of episode 6, The Demon Cages. Okay, so, The Demon Cages. I understand that it may look as though I'm being very biased towards this show going forward. I have been incredibly generous with my ratings thus far. I won't deny that. However, the show is just so impressive on every level. As for this particular episode, I don't think it's the best of the season, but it's a very good one. But I don't know if it impressed me quite as much as the previous few episodes, shall we say. First of all, I have one particular issue with this episode, which kind of bothered me a bit, was as the episode built up towards its climax, the climax itself didn't really hold much weight. The action was kind of sloppy. I kind of wish that the final battle at Bolvangar was a lot more epic. It didn't have any stakes to it. And it just kind of left me feeling slightly underwhelmed. I was like, oh, right, we just kind of built up to this. However, the actual ending to the episode is very good when the creatures, whatever they are, attack Lee's air balloon and Lyra falls off the air balloon. That scene was incredibly dramatic, and it was much better than the whole battle that took place in Bolvangar. Don't get me wrong, it was satisfying to see the Egyptians finally reach the children and finally get some revenge on the people at Bolvangar, and also sort of avenge Billy's death as well. I mean, the first couple of acts of this episode, the build-up was a bit slow, and it was building, and I was like, okay, I'm actually getting quite excited, but then I'm not going to lie, I was a little bit let down with the final battle. I won't deny. It looks technically fantastic, but just there could have been so much more weight to that final battle. Now, don't get me wrong, I know this is not the last episode. I know there are 2 more episodes to go, but still, it would have just made this much more epic. What I do love about this episode, however, is the fact that it focuses more on the children. And for pretty much 90% of this episode, we focus centrally on Lyra and the kids who are trapped inside Bolvangar, and they have to hide her from Mrs. Coulter. And then Lyra is almost killed in this machine, which will slice her from Pan, which is how Billy died, because he was separated from his demon. And there are a group of other children who are basically like how Billy was in the previous episode, kind of zombie-like kids who were just kind of there without a demon and not aware of. They're kind of oblivious to everything. It's an incredibly emotional scene when Mrs. Coulter comes in and stops the doctors from killing Lyra. They obviously don't realise that Lyra is Mrs. Coulter's daughter. But, yeah, luckily Mrs. Coulter saves her. So there was a nice moment between the two of them there. And then what follows is a scene where Mrs. Coulter basically has a heart-to-heart with Lyra and says, I'm sorry for giving you up, but Azrael had his own ideas about your upbringing, and I just couldn't take care of you at the time, but it's not because I didn't care, it's just because I couldn't. Of course, there may not be entire truth in this, but Mrs. Coulter is good at manipulating people. And Lyra definitely has got a streak of her mother in her, that's for sure, because she's quite crafty when it comes to people as well. She's good at deceiving people as well. There's that particular moment when she meets Roger and she reunites with Roger, which is a lovely scene, and then they throw snowballs at everybody, and then they distract the guards, and they try and use that as a way to escape Bolvangar. But the scene between Lyra and Mrs. Coulter, where she thinks that Lyra has the alethiometer and she wants to take it from her, Lyra tricks her with the spy fly that has been soldered into this tin, and it hits her in the face, and Lyra just escapes the room. That was an incredibly dramatic scene, because just when you think that Mrs. Coulter finally has her back, and she's finally got her daughter back, and she's finally able to finally have her, Lyra tricks her and gets out. And I like the fact that the two of them do the same thing, in the sense that they both scream really loudly. Lyra breaks the controls of the door, and Mrs. Coulter is bashing the other side of the door, and they're both screaming at each other. and Pan has to say, Lyra, that's enough, let's go. So you can definitely see the similarities between the two of them. They are definitely mother and daughter. There are definitely aspects of each character that are incredibly similar in both of them. And I just think the performances by Dafne Keen and Ruth Wilson are fantastic. Dafne Keen particularly, probably best performance so far. She gets a lot to do as well. She's holding this episode together. Lewin Lloyd also does a good job as Roger. He hasn't had a huge amount to do because he's not been in a few of the episodes, but we're finally seeing him back now. And it's nice that him and Lyra are so close as friends, and he really takes the stand as well. He says to the Egyptian kids, come on, we're going to have to get out. You know, you can either stay in here and just, you know, let this continue, or you can come with me and I'll save your lives. And they obviously do so. And it's a great moment when the kids revolt. They finally revolt against the doctors at Bolvanger. And obviously Lyra knew exactly what they were going to do, because at the end of the previous episode, if you remember, they brought Lyra in, they captured her, they asked her to strip off all of her clothes, and she stood there completely naked, and then they took her in. So Lyra then was examined at the start of this episode as well, and she was seeing what was going on, and then she mentions the word dust, and they're a bit curious as to how she knows that as well. So Lyra was really able to kind of get an understanding of what's going on, and she actually saw it happen, even though she knew Billy had died, but she was able to see in full effect what this machine was going to do to her and to everybody else who still had their demons. And I like that she formed some friendships with some of the girls as well, who also help hide her from Mrs. Coulter, and they also join the fight to get out of Bolvanger. And I like the look of Bolvanger. It's a very dark looking place, and I think the atmosphere is really good about the episode. The cinematography is just superb. I mean, the Egyptians are good in this one. They don't get to do as much because they're only in a few scenes, but it's quite good that they finally get their kids back. And I like the scene between John Farr and Mark Oster at the very end, when they realise that they finally do have one over on the villains, because they've managed to rescue the children. So they've kind of scuppered their plans a little bit, which is great. And obviously they have a moment to remember Billy as well. So there's a lot of emotional beats to this one, which I really like. I also like Serafina Pekkala here. She gets to do a bit more. She gets involved in the final fight. And the visual effects for her are fantastic. Like when you see her zooming around and killing everyone, and you know, she's great. She really is great. I don't know who the actress is. Ruta Gedmintas, who plays Serafina Pekkala, she does a good job. And I mean, she doesn't have many lines in the episode, but she is good in her involvement in the story, which I like. I also like Lin-Manuel Miranda as Lee Scoresby. He gets quite a bit to do this time. He now is basically protecting Lyra, because Lyra goes in his air balloon at the very end and goes off to find her father, Lord Asriel, and give him the alethiometer, with Urek and with Roger as well. And then obviously at the end, we as I mentioned, we see Lyra fall off the air balloon and into God knows where. Of course she's not dead. We know she's not going to die. There's still 2 more episodes to go. It would be silly to kill her off at this point, and that's not what happens in the book anyway. And also Joe Tandberg as Urek. He doesn't get too much to do either. He's in a couple of moments, but very briefly. This is still a very good episode, but it's not my personal favourite. I do really like it. It's very intriguing, and it's very dark, and there are some great emotional moments, but the final battle is disappointing, so I do have to take points off for that, I'm afraid. So I will give episode 6, The Demon Cages, a 9 out of 10. It's still very good, don't get me wrong, it is still really good, and I like where it's going. I definitely like where it's going, and there's still 2 more episodes left of this first season, so plenty more to look forward to. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, sorry for the delay, and stay tuned next time when I review episode 7, Fight to the Death. Until then, I'm Mr. TARDIS11, see you soon, bye for now.